Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Chief of Police of Waterbury, Connecticut, Chief Vernon Riddick.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that introduction. As you can see, I'm 6'6", and for me to stand on that stage would be absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to stand down here. Everybody hear me pretty good in the back? You can't hear me?
Yes.
As was mentioned, Polish University was good to me. I had my master's degree from here in public administration, my undergraduate from Tufts University in Massachusetts. So obviously education is extremely important. You hear that, daughter? My youngest, Vanessa, say hello. My wife, Sandra, say hello. She's actually standing, she's 3 feet tall. I'll pay for that later. I'm sorry, I already paid for it. My dad, Vernon Sr. A couple of people will get going here. Dr. James Gatlin, a good friend and mentor to the family. Middletown, thank you for your support. Major Regina Rush Kittle from the State Police, thank you for your support. Jim Viardero from Middlebury, former, retired from Bridgeport. How many years, Jim? 30 years. Thank you for your support for being out here. Members of the Waterbury Police Department Community Relations Division. Get it? Community relations. I didn't tell them to be here either. Yeah. We have some of our command staff in the back. Captain Frank Koshes. Captain Eddie Fonte. Lieutenant Mike Slavin. Captain Billy, the real deal, Fox. Internal affairs, we have internal affairs in the back. Wave your hand, they're short too. Stand up, stand up. Sergeant Dave Knapp, thank you. We started the academy together many years ago in the Ansonia Police Department. Detective Milford Hayes and his son, thank you very much. Oh, Attorney Gary Russo. Thank you. Yes. Scapini, thank you. Attorney Russo works in the police department. He's our legal authority. He helps out tremendously with his great wisdom. Sorry, here I hope. He goes on the floor like every other week. By the way, he only has like 20 hours vacation time. I don't know how that works. Anyways, we're here for moving beyond Ferguson. I'm not really sure what you expected or anticipated, and I hope that you received something from this evening. I think of the events in Ferguson showed us that one, there's a disconnect between the police department and the community. A lack of trust between the police department and the community. And more importantly, I think, a lack of legitimacy. There seems to be something, an underlying toe, an underlying theme that was happening prior to the event. The event actually was a result of other things. And I hope tonight, as we look to go beyond Ferguson, what we can learn, some of the social realities. What can we find out? What can we do better? What are we doing well? Very, very important. Obviously, in the time that we have this evening, there is no way in the world we're going to be able to tackle every single topic and every single subject. To really delve into this, to drill down, like that term, drill down, flesh out, all that good stuff, it's going to take, I think, a semester-long class, to be honest with you. So I decided just to pick one or two things that I thought was very important and speak about that. The context of this is race. Buckle up, folks. We're about to go for a ride. What is going on here? Why in America were African Americans and whites, and again, I'm going to focus on African Americans because that's where most of the attention was on. That's where all the national debate is on. Everybody knows that. They can deal with any minority. Here's where it started. If you look from 2000 to 2011, this graph expresses how the public feels about the police. As you can see, don't worry about the end numbers. Whites feel one way, black feel another. And at some point, I'm not sure what happened in 2007, you're talking a disparity of almost 40%. Why is that? What is going on? What are we missing? And how does that impact, how does that affect policing? How does that affect the relationship between the police and the public? I'd like to give credit to Dr. Tom Tyner, who works at Yale. He's a professor at Yale University. A lot of the research here is from him. He gave me permission to use that, so I thank him for that. And he's not here. I hope I get a free tuition. No disrespect, folks, but it is Yale. How did we get here? A little history. Now, once you mention slavery, civil rights movement, racial prejudice, people get defensive sometimes. Other people will say it's race mongering, hucksters, all the rest of that stuff. Hey, it happened way in the past. Why are we talking about that now? Why is it relevant now? I'm supposed to explain to you why I think it's relevant, especially regarding policing. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery in 1865. The important thing is, when I'm preparing for this lecture, that there was a prison exception with that. And what that meant was, and what that currently means is, although slavery was abolished, if someone was arrested and brought to prison and was used for hard labor, that was not considered slavery. Now back then we had sheriffs. Police departments were just starting at that time. Waterbury Police Department was established in 1853, during the time of slavery. So does anyone here not understand, was anyone under the misconception that although legally there was no slavery, that the arresting of innocent black men, mostly, who were used for labor, wasn't happening? And who were the enforcers of that? Sheriffs, police. You see what's starting here? Conflict, trust, distrust. Law enforcement legacy. So if you go from slavery, you go to the early 1900s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, into the 50s, you have segregation. Who enforced segregation? Who were the enforcers of segregation? If there's a violation, I'll tell you who. The police. What is the impact on a race when you have an organization, a powerful organization, who's enforcing something that is wrong? Doesn't that start to show we're going to have different views on police and the authority of police, the legitimacy of police? Last Friday, the award ceremony, Mr. Alton Brooks, a 92-year-old African-American man. He accepted an award from Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty. And I had an opportunity to talk with him before the award ceremony, and shortly thereafter, and he mentioned that his grandfather was born into slavery. Think about this, folks. Remember the legacy, slavery. We're saying this stuff happened a long time ago. But his grandfather was born a slave, a grandfather whom he knew and spoke to. Legacy. Is it a stretch to think that some of the things he talked about would be how to protect yourself, how to be careful, watch out for the police, DWB, all this stuff, legacy in today's world. I have two grandmothers who are still living, thank God. All the grandfathers are dead for some reason. The women always win. One who lives up here, and the second one who lives down south. The one who's down south, she's 89 years old. Both of my grandmothers lived through segregation. They are currently alive now. They had to drink at different water fountains. Couldn't go to certain restaurants. What do you think the legacy of them to their children and to me, my lifetime is? Be careful. Be careful of the police. You don't know what they might do to you. I'm not saying right or wrong, folks. I'm just telling you reality. A reason why whites and blacks view police differently. It was amazing to learn the ice cream shop. I'm not going to mention the ice cream chain. Up until the 70s, right? I was born in 1906. I'm 48 years old. Up until the 70s, everything's supposed to be okay. Blacks not allowed inside that ice cream shop. The only way you got your ice cream was to go through the drive-thru. Legacy. And again, for the violation, you know who was always standing around there or driving around? The local sheriff. Is that community relations? And if it is, isn't it negative community relations? Isn't it building barriers? Isn't it building distrust? When we're talking about this, think about Ferguson. Think about all the things that happened over there during that time. How things boiled over. The impact of the past relationships and dealings with the police and the minority community, especially African Americans, has impacted police legitimacy. Police legitimacy, in a nutshell, is the essence of this concept is that it's important for the public to view the police as entitled to exercise their authority to maintain social order, manage conflicts, and solve problems in their communities. That sounds great. That's legitimacy. The three main themes here are trust and confidence in the police, the willingness to defer to police authority. I see a lot of deference in Ferguson. I see a lot of deference in New York with Mr. Garner. Viewing police actions as morally correct and appropriate. And another way of looking at this is procedural justice, that police exercise their authority appropriately. Think about this now. During police and citizen interactions, again, keep Ferguson in the back of your mind, keep your own personal experiences in your mind. Legitimacy increases deference, leads to voluntary decision acceptance of police directives that is maintained over time. All that means is once you actually do something, you comply, you do it. Lowers resistance and hostility. Okay, you're not getting angry, not getting upset. Less likely to engage in extra-legal violence, collective actions such as riots. Sound familiar? What do we have over there? So if you look at the other side of this, if you have a history of distrust between a group of people and the police, who may not view the police as legitimate, doesn't that mean here the converse of this is true? So if you don't believe the police are legitimate, doesn't the illegitimacy of the police decrease in deference? Doesn't it also mean that you don't accept the directives of the police? The next line. If you increase resistance and hostility, if it's illegitimate, but you don't trust, you don't believe, and you are likely to engage in extra-legal violence and collective actions such as riots. That's what we saw in Ferguson. And then we saw the spark throughout the entire nation as it was contagious. Why did it go through? Maybe there's a whole lot of mini Fergusons going on here. People have their personal opinions, their personal interaction with some officers. I can't give an answer for that. There's a reason why this happened. That's what we're trying to get to. The reasons why this happened. We're here to look beyond Ferguson. We're here to look for solutions. We're here to make things better in our little world. And everybody has a voice. Everybody has something that you can do. If you take that power that you have and affect one life, you can affect somebody else. You also can start to spark something else that's contagious. That can make a difference. That can make this world a whole lot better than what it is. Education. I think all of this, yes, there's no magic bullet. There's no magic serum to fix things and issues that we have. But if you want to increase legitimacy in our minority community, education is huge. Two sides of this, police. As police chiefs and leaders in the organization, leaders in the community, we have some chiefs here. We have some high-level management police officers here, police personnel, high-level people in the community. On the police side, we as leaders have to do a better job of speaking to our officers regarding context and the way they're going to be treated by minorities, in particular African Americans sometimes. And not to take it personal, because although I'm looking at you, it's actually the things I've been taught throughout the years or told that impacts how I react to you. And if we deal with that and understand that, I think it will help, especially some of the white officers to get that, sometimes if somebody gets pulled over, the first thing you might hear, I'm sure some of you have heard this, you only pulled me over because I'm black. There's a reason for some of that. I'm not excusing it. We're trying to get understanding. We're trying to get and make things better going forward. Education. Dealing with fear. It's very interesting. The Los Angeles Police Department, I think it was back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, Miss Connie Rice, a civil rights attorney, who was sued police departments nationwide and won. She was brought in, and then Chief, not really then, William Bratton, he was LAPD chief at that time, and did a preemptive strike, which I thought was brilliant. He brought her in to assess the police department and give him her thoughts on some changes and some things and improvements that can be done to the police department. What she did was put out a survey, an anonymous survey. And all you have on the top is your race and your sex. One of the questions that was asked of the police officers, do you fear black people? The majority of the white officers replied, yes. Yes, they did. Now, for the law enforcement personnel, let's talk about this for 2 seconds, and the rest of you folks listen in. When we use force, we're trying to protect ourselves. And what's one thing that we use? We do what? We fear for our safety, therefore we utilize force? Yes? No? Yeah. Okay. So if you start off with a natural fear of somebody, whether it's legitimate or not, but you have this fear, aren't you already starting off with a level of force that you might be using? Think about this logically. Look at this as a common sense approach. This presentation today is not going to be a whole bunch of stats and the rest of that stuff. It's all about just thinking just a little bit. And if you have that, and then you have people on the other side, African Americans will use now, who don't legitimize, and I'm generalizing here, but we're using some stats, I'm generalizing a little bit, but it's the truth. Who have a legitimate fear, perceived or not, of the police, so you have fear on both sides, a lack of respect, a lack of legitimacy. Aren't we setting ourselves up for conflict? Isn't that part of what we saw occurring in Ferguson? And later on, when we watched the Eric Garner video, isn't that a lot of what happened there? He didn't respect the police, didn't think the police authority was legitimate. That's a problem. We need to talk about that. This is a touchy subject. As the first African American chief, it's not often that I talk about race, even within my police department. So I don't want to be branded as that guy. But I've tried to reassess and evaluate myself and said, you know what? Why are you talking out? Excuse my street vernacular for 2 seconds. Why? If you want to make a change, you can't be a hypocrite. You have to talk about these things. We really, really do. And after Ferguson, we had some discussions within our command staff regarding some of these issues. We had some tendency in some people, maybe, yes, even myself, a little hesitant. Take some baby steps. It's going to take a while to get through these things. But we have to talk about this. And another problem is that people are honest. If a white male officer says, yeah, I have a fear of black people, then you know what, black folks? Well, you can't attack this gentleman. Don't jump all over him. Because if you do, you're going to shut him down. And anybody else who's watching this and heard this, they're going to be shut down. Why would you talk? Why would you express yourself? Why? So on the other side, we have to be cognizant of this. But we also, black people, African Americans, have to acknowledge that we have some preconceived notions about police officers ourselves. And a lot of times police officers are just doing their job. And we misunderstand that sometimes, and we take it for race being used, when that actually isn't the case. Most of our officers, 95% of us, just want to come in, do our job, go home, make our community safe. That's the bottom line, regardless of race. We have to talk about these things. We really, really do. Otherwise, we have many Fergusons all over. Oh, Ms. Rhonda Glover from the M.P.A, good to see you. Second in charge. De-escalation techniques. As we've learned through our academies and everything else as we go forward, a lot of times police officers, we're taught to escalate. To a certain level, no, they actually just walk right to the front. Reserve signs, pick up the reserve signs, go ahead, Monty. We have to work on de-escalation techniques. You know, if we're in a verbal situation, instead of going higher, let's try to bring people down. Let's work on those things. Because again, what are we trying to avoid? Conflict. What are we trying to avoid? Violence. What are we trying to avoid? People getting hurt, losing their lives. We don't need that. We have to do better with that. Until the police side, we teach our officers that. One thing we do in the Waterbury Police Department with ethnic customs, and not so much the racial triggers, is we bring different groups in to talk to our cadets. From the Muslim community, the Jewish community, African American community, we bring people in. And it's amazing what you find out. You know, I was unaware, I'd never been to a mosque before, but one of the mosques in our town is disrespectful to come in with your shoes on. You have to stop and show deference. Now think about this, you're a law enforcement person who's been called to a mosque for whatever reason. You go to the door and you're told, no, you can't come in. You know where we are sometimes. What do you mean? You call me, go in and find out and then fix the problem. Or we'll say, well, fine, you call, you don't want to talk to me, we'll leave. Well, how about something else? How about either one, speak outside, two, take 2 seconds if it's not an emergency situation, take your boots off, your shoes off, walk inside and show respect. It goes a long way. In the Jewish community, the women, you're not supposed to talk, this is in our section of Waterbury, to the women, you have to talk to the man, you can't touch them, sir. Touch the woman, so shaking their hand and stuff, disrespectful. How do you know that? We learned a lot of these things. Racial triggers. Sometimes an innocent action can be misconstrued or misconceived or taken the wrong way. I'm not sure how many people in this room know, but I'm sure many of the African Americans do, especially African American males, it's very disrespectful to touch the top of the head of an African American male boy, especially if they're of opposite race, like a white male. Some people didn't know that. You know why? That goes back to the slavery days, the legacy stuff. Because a lot of the slave masters would go to grown men, touch them on the head. How you doing, boy? Come here, boy. And call him boy. I remember early on in my career, I was working with a white officer. Oh, Ms. Farrick, how are you? Thanks for coming.
Sorry.
Ms. Farrick, she's the head of the FBI for the state of Connecticut. Thank you. Bring in watch, guys. Here we go. Working together. I told you it can happen. Thank you, Patty, for coming. I appreciate it. Racial triggers. Boy, we were walking together, and there was 2 young kids, they were probably 10, 11 years old, sitting on the stool. You just wouldn't be. You walked over. Said, hey, boys, how you doing? Oh my goodness. The child's mother was outside. She went off through the roof. So we were able to calm her down. We did not arrest her. And then he's like, I don't understand her. You know, what did I do? And I broke it down for him. I explained to him. Is that fair for him to know that, not to know that? No, it isn't. Now, did the mother sort of overreact? Yeah, probably. But again, education, breaking down barriers, working together, learning about each other. And once I explained to the officers, like, wow, I get it. So I never would have thought that. I didn't know that. So a lot of things that are innocent, that we can misconstrue, which can lead to what? Conflict, violence. We don't need that. We can go away from that. Transparency. As law enforcement officials, we have to do a better job of explaining to our officers the importance of transparency. Well, Chief, what do you mean by that? I know some of you guys are going to get mad at me, but we have internal affairs investigations and discipline is meted out, and we talk to the press, or if someone's suspended or an officer is fired, and I talk to the newspaper, I explain to them why. A lot of times officers feel that's not right, and it's not fair. Why do we have to put ourselves out like that? It's embarrassing. But aren't we making deposits to legitimacy? Aren't we making investment of capital in the community when we do that? Or we're showing that, one, we're not afraid to tell people what we've done. 2, we can take care of our own business. And 3, we will not tolerate inappropriate behavior within our police department. You see, that actually helps. That builds the legitimacy we talked about earlier. It helps build that trust and transparency. Lastly, the importance of fair and appropriate application of police authority. Again, procedural justice. Using your authority appropriately in the time you're supposed to do it and in the manner you're supposed to do it. Now on the other side, education. Again, keep it focused in the back of your mind. New York City in the back of your mind. The public. What can we do to help the public understand policing just a little better? 1, we have to show and explain that officers care about the community. Look around you in this room right now. You see a lot of police officers who will be doing something different tonight. And no, I ordered no one here. None of them were ordered, except for Scott. Sorry. I almost caught me in a lie. Scott was the only one that was ordered here. But we do care. As I mentioned before, most officers just want to come. You want to do your job. You want to go home and make the community better. That's the truth. It really, really is. And each year that I work, I've been doing law enforcement now for 23 years, the Waterbury Police Department for 21 years. I see that day in and day out. Officers putting their lives on the line. It sounds like a cliche, folks, but it's the truth. You never know which day could be your last. When you put your gun in your badge on in the morning, you really don't know if you're coming back home or not. You expect to. You don't expect that you're not going to make it out. But the risk is out there. The danger is there that you might not make it. The complaint process. We have to do a better job explaining to the public what our complaint process is, that it's valid, user-friendly, legitimate. Remember we talked about legitimacy earlier. It's legitimate. You can make a complaint in person, you can make a complaint over the phone, you can make a complaint anonymously, you can make a complaint in writing. All these things are important. Again, with the Ferguson backdrop, it shows again we're not afraid to discipline our own, not afraid to take corrective action. Building capital with the community, which does what? Decreases conflict and reduces the opportunity for violence. Reoccurring thing, folks. And understand legitimacy with African Americans we talked about earlier, and the police. This is important to break those barriers down. Huge. Compliance. You must comply to the authority of a police officer. Bottom line. You don't know the laws like we know. We might even be wrong. But if you get into a situation and get into a physical altercation with a police officer, the cavalry is coming. And when we come, we're not asking, oh, who started this? Did you start this? Is the cop right? Is the cop? Oh, we're coming to protect the officer. That's the truth. Bottom line. What's our goal? Reduce conflict. Save lives. Avoid the conflict. We must express to our young people, especially our young African American males who distrust the police. You can't mouth off. You can't start fighting and pushing back. You're not going to win. You're not going to win right there, right now. It's just not going to happen. Either you're going to get hurt or the officer's going to get hurt. We got to talk back up. It's just the way it is, folks. We got to teach you. Control yourself. We have a complaint process. If you don't think it was right, if you think you were racially profiled, if you feel you were picked on for whatever reason, you're not going to win that fight right there. Take that back and tell everybody that. Your fight is later. Be around to live for later. Remember we're talking about legitimacy, compliance, trust, respect for authority. So here regarding the situation.
Wait, God, stop. Put it on me.
That's all right.
The people that's fighting this and walk away? Are you serious? Do nothing. Let go. I didn't sell anything. I did nothing. We sit here the whole time on our business. They told you. That's what you want. That's what I say to whom?
That's showing trust and confidence in the police? No.
Is it your hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. These stops today.
This guy right here is supposedly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody's standing there until I didn't do nothing.
Does he believe the police are correct at this point?
I think I sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me.
What's the one
you want to
believe?
stop me. You want to sell a cigarette. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time. Please just leave me alone. Don't touch me.
Hands are
Don't
up.
touch me.
He's not complying. We're good. Why do I show that video? We just talked about this. You're not going to win at that point. I'm not justifying anybody's actions in this. What happened later on, I got some issues with somebody on the ground, and we're still holding and choking people. You know, who knows what's going on like that. But we're talking about prior to that. I just mentioned to you, you're not going to win at that point. There is a violation of law, whether you agree or not. We can't have every situation where people don't think that they violated the law. What law? You have to have attorneys for it and everything else. And most officers aren't just going to go up to you for no reason. There might be some. But no one's perfect. No police department is perfect. Most of us, there's a reason why you're being stopped. The other side of that. So he would have complied. Some people don't like this, so I'm telling you the truth. He was simply complied. His hand behind his back. He'd be lying about it. That's just a fact, folks. Conversely, did law enforcement have to push it that high for a minor offense? Was it that big a deal? We have to exercise discretion there sometimes. And yes, we're responding to a quality of life issue, but in your response, it was temporary. It must be judicious. Use discretion, the level that we need. Well, it could have been an infraction that we gave, or they could give a summons or something like that. Both sides of the coin. Both sides. Compliance, and then we could have had discretion. Everybody talked about de-escalation earlier. There's still an opportunity. There's 4 or 5 officers there could have stood back, let them vent for a while, talk to them. You may have found out, maybe you wouldn't have. Not placing blame. We're talking here, right? We're trying to come with solutions, right? And we're trying to avoid what? Which leads to what? Which can lead, in some cases, to death. We need to do a better job actually explaining to the public, dealing what's permissible by the police act, by police officers, and also officer safety. I think it's very, very important, especially our young people, especially African American males who get arrested a lot. A lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, you get pulled over. Oh, I'm pulled over because I'm black. Or why'd you do that? You can't do this. You can't. Oh, relax. Calm down. You don't know. Officer safety, we talked about this. This is Arizona, a rookie officer of 1 year on the job. And I'm going to let this play itself out. We're not going to see the ending stops, but this officer at the end is killed. In the middle here, a little blurry, but officer safety. Remember I said before, when we leave to do our job, expect to come home, understanding that we might not. He didn't. This is a body camera.
Sorry. What's that? We talk outside? We did. How you doing?
It gets better.
Talk outside? Weapons in your pockets or anything like that? Okay. Okay. How bad is the pain?
On a scale of 1 to 10, like a 12.
Like a 12?
It shoots up to here.
Okay. Okay, so I was in the area, got some other calls coming in, so I thought I'd swing by. The other stuff in the apartment, she's showing me like a little bookshelf. The polish, you didn't stay out, the polish got that way. She said the pumpkin got knocked
Yeah,
over.
it's pretty good. You need the light stem.
Or the handle got ripped off, or whatever, the stem.
Oh, the pumpkin. No, honestly, I think the pumpkin was just a cat. The curtain.
Okay. Well, the curtain's in the bedroom and the pumpkin's in the kitchen, so how'd that happen?
Well, the pumpkin, the dog grabbed the pumpkin, so the reason we always keep the pumpkin out of the dog, she always wants to play and eat the pumpkin. We've had it for a long time. The house like survived through all these holidays. Honestly, I don't know how it got out there. We usually keep all that stuff in the bedroom, but we don't want to do it.
Okay.
So the dude is living,
Okay. So the dog was around when this all happened?
yeah, freaking out.
Okay. Did the dog knock anything over or break anything that you know?
Not that I know of.
Keep watching the man's hands. All police officers know when you're talking to someone like that, you want to see hands.
Okay.
For her, and then in the meantime, I mean, I can hear Betsy, the dog, barking like crazy, you know?
Okay.
Because she's not supposed to bark in the apartment complex. It's like a quiet complex, you know?
Yeah.
But the whole curtain thing,
You're talking about the blinds in her bedroom?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, those are from my old apartment. Not that it matters. I put them in the drywall. I didn't have a drywall thing to put screws in. It was crooked. It was too low. It turned into a fiasco. That's kind of the wedge, you know.
Okay.
Like,
You mind if I just pat down your pockets real quick? You don't have anything in here?
no.
Okay. Nothing in here?
No, this is my smoke.
Okay.
Lights? He was shot, I believe, 6 times. Once in the back, and I think another 3 times in the head with the revolvers, as you can see there. Why are we talking about this if we're talking about moving beyond first? Where's the relevance, Chief? What are you talking about here? Pat downs, officer safety, when you deal with individuals, education. This is why when officers are talking to people when their hands are inside their pocket, that's why we ask them to take your hands out. The reason we let this go long is I want you to show that this came out of nowhere. There was no animosity going back and forth. There was no adversity. There was no yelling and screaming. For those of us in law enforcement who really look at this, and the family allowed this to be viewed because they wanted other people to learn from this, first of all. A lot of things he missed. He walked, this gentleman here, you couldn't see, but he walked into a room and left the officer. That's when he grabbed the gun and put it inside his pocket and came out. The whole while he had his hands in it, this officer who's new, something should have been there, get your hands up. And as soon as he says no, you're on him. Now, in the minority community, African American community, if we see something like that, we're talking about African Americans now, we're talking about conflict. How does that look? Understanding the legitimacy issue we discussed before, the cops aren't legitimate. Hey, I'm not doing anything. What are you doing? I'm just standing here with my hands in my pocket. I'm not. Why did I take my hands out? Why? So going to lead to conflict. You got to show those hands. Pat downs. We need to do a better job explaining to our youth, to our adults, when we can do pat downs. Again, it's done for officer safety. You know, pat down the outer garments. What's the pat down for? For weapons. If you feel something you can articulate is a weapon, you're allowed legally to go inside someone's pocket and retrieve it. If it's inside, it's contraband or weapon, you can take it out and be arrested for it. There's no secrets here. It's illegal to walk up to someone and just go inside their pockets and start turning their pockets out. That's illegal. But people think the pat-down is illegal. When we go to these high crime areas, and again, most of the time it's in minority areas, where we've had multiple shootings, where we've had homicides, where we've had rapes, robberies, serious assaults, and we're talking to the young guys with the hoodie on the corner, 3 or 4 guys in their pocket. You're on alert. You're on high alert. I'm sorry, folks. It's just the way it is. Doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful. Doesn't mean any of that. It means please, sir, take your hands out of your pocket while I talk to you. I appreciate it. Most normal people would. Some people might not. It's going to lead to conflict, injury, or death. Vehicle. We're pulled over on a motor vehicle stop. Our young people need to know. Our African American males need to know. People need to understand and know. If you come in, if your windows are up, it's tinted windows, it's late at night, officers concerned about what? His safety. I love tinted windows, they're nice on hot days, but when you're a police officer, what's one thing you can't stand, folks, at night? All the officers, tinted windows. Can't stand it. Educate our youth. Educate yourself. If you're pulled over, especially at night with tinted windows or anything like that, in a dark area, turn your interior light on, turn the car off, roll the window down, leave your hands on the steering wheel, and wait for instructions from the police officer. Remember the fear we talked about earlier? LAPD, the survey. Do we really, are we all that naive to think that it's just LAPD? That's the only place that has that problem? That it can't be Waterbury, it can't be NYPD, Miami, Middlebury? And are we that naive to think that sometimes we're not casting blame, just talk reality, that if me, 6'6", 200 pounds, are stopped in a vehicle with my sweatshirt on, or my sweatsuit that I wear sometimes, if an officer's coming over and I start reaching for my license or registration over here while it's coming over, aren't they going to alarm me just a little bit? Feel a little nervous? Will it be the same if it's a white male? Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Remember the prejudice we talked about earlier? Talk about the bias, the fear. These ones officers in fear. We can talk about this, not attack. It's okay. If we talk about it, we can overcome. If our youth know this, our African American males know this, and something happens, we can deal with it. We can prevent problems from happening. Again, motor vehicle stops, the new law is now, if you're stopped, you're allowed to ask questions. If at the end for the complaint, give a complaint process, give you a card, you can go forward with that. What are our outcomes? What are we hoping to learn from this? What are we learning from Ferguson? What are we learning from tonight? I hope something. Reduce conflicts between the public and the police education. Increase trust and cooperation. Legitimacy. Remember we talked about legitimacy earlier? And part of the, one of the components is trust, confidence, righteousness. If we understand more about each other, if we talk together, if minority communities engage more with police engage more with the minority communities, we can avoid the situations that occurred in Ferguson. The outcry that happened in New York, Cleveland, so many more things. You know, one of the great things that we have in educational outcomes in the city of Waterbury is our cooperation is good. Unless it we're working, we got issues. But when a crime happens, people call us. They tell us. They call that gentleman right there, the head of our criminal investigation bureau. They call other people. That's important. You know what that tells me? You know what that tells all of us? That we're doing some things right. The public isn't shut down. We might not agree every time, but we're doing some things right. We can learn post-Ferguson from the police department such as Waterbury how to do things better. How do we educate? How do we get this message out here so we don't have the conflicts, we don't have the violence? Like tonight, public forums, discussions, being open. neighborhood meetings, citizen police academies. I recommend anybody has opportunity to go to Citizen Police Academy to do such. The members of the NAACP come, I don't know, when was this, Scott, a year or so ago? And the information that was gathered there, and the outcomes at the end, they said, you know what, we didn't understand the education stuff we were talking about before, about pat-downs. We understand about officer safety. We put them in scenarios where they're the police officer, dealing with an individual, and that sense that you feel, a little bit of nervousness that you have, it helped out tremendously. And mostly, we understand the people's concerns too from the community. So working together, we can definitely make a lot of things happen. Police websites, social media, informational flyers, public access TV. There's so many things. What do we do for our police officers? We talk about educating them so we can reduce conflict. In-service training, roll call training, police academy training we mentioned before. This is important. Our supervisors treating officers in the manner that the officers are expected to treat the public. Sometimes, especially in law enforcement, because we're a paramilitary organization, we tend to come down on our subordinates. Then we're surprised when they go out to the public and start yelling and screaming at people, just like they were yelling and screaming at them. You want respect, you got to give. The supervisor who talk to your subordinates are the human beings as individuals. And model the behavior that you want them to model in the public. Mentoring, coaching, self-explanatory. Huge in reducing conflict. Post-Ferguson, things, lessons learned. I can pretty much guess there was no huge community policing going on in Ferguson. Anyone want to disagree with me there? If it was terrible. Because before you have a huge event like that, you got to know who the players are. You got to know who the important people are going to call when the blink hits the fan. Hopefully it will never hit the fan because you call the right people and they have trust in you and go forward and stop things from happening, prevent things from happening. The essence of community policing is working together is community-centered, meaning that instead of police going in and saying, hey, here's the problem in your community, it's more the community telling us, hey, here's our problem. What can we do together to solve this? Building legitimacy. Anytime you see legitimacy, remember what we're talking about here. Trust in the police department, police officers doing their job correctly. And again, remember we talked about earlier, how African Americans view police, African Americans advise view police differently. If you build legitimacy, you're going to decrease opportunities for conflict. It has to be a commitment from the top. For the chiefs that are here, the deputy chiefs, the majors, the captains, the assistant deputy chiefs, all the people, we have to demonstrate this to show that we mean this from the top. Getting out of our comfort zones. Instead of being home with our families, being out like nights like tonight. Making sacrifices. One thing I do is I have weekly meetings with the local ministers in the city of Waterbury. Dr. Gavin started this a couple of years ago, and I asked him, can I come in to report to people and sit down? And he let me come in, so I appreciate it. Thank you. But we have a lot of good discussions, a lot of dialogue. And they get to ask me questions they probably wouldn't ask in a different setting. It's not easy to break bread with somebody over a nice stack of pancakes in the morning. It's a good atmosphere, especially when he pays half the time. It's really, really good.